Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'll show how to use Unity's new input system. The reason why is because Unity's input system allows to very easily create cross-platform controls. So if you want to use both Xbox controls, PlayStation controllers, keyboard, whatever, it can very easily be implemented by using this input system. I'm just going to show the very basics of it today, and then you can try to get better at it as you go on. But that's a topic that you need to go down yourself. Without further ado, I'm just going to show you how to download and use it. So I have this little game scene here, and I want my character to move using Unity's new input system. Before I can actually begin doing that, I firstly need to download it. So I go up to Window and Package Manager, and I just search for input. And then input system will pop up, and you just click install. While installing, Unity will ask you to restart your editor, and you just press yes. Okay. I now have the input system installed and my Unity has reset, so I'm just gonna close this down again. And now we can start creating some inputs. You just right click down in project, go to create and scroll down at the bottom. At the bottom you will find this tab called input actions, and you press. And I'm gonna call this player because I want to use this for the player. You can then double click, and then this window will pop up where you can create different action maps and actions. And the action maps is just a general map of different types of actions where you can focus on. So you could have a focus on just a player specifically, but you could also like have a mini game action map or whatever. But usually you just create one for the player. And I'm gonna delete this. So here we have the actions tab, and in the actions tab, this is where you're actually gonna define your input. So I can click on the plus button, and this is my overall action, and I'm gonna call this move, because this is where we're gonna place our movement input inside. Here are the action types, and people don't really use the value as far as I know. But we have the button and the pass through. The button just checks for a general press, while the pass through you can hold down and the values go through and update, and then you can press up and then it stops working. So I'm gonna use the pass through for normal key bindings. And you can also define the control type, like what kind of value do you want this input to return. Since I'm using 3D, I want a vector 3. I'm going to delete this binding, because now that we have defined that this is a vector 3, I can click here on the plus and add up, down, left, right, forward, and backwards composite. And I can define this is for the WASD. And since I don't want to move upwards, I can just delete these two. So now we have a different bindings properties, and here at path you can just press and find the ones you want to use. So I want to use the A for keyboard for left, D for right, A for left, D for right, W for forward, and S for backwards. So this is the WSD. I can also create for controllers if I want to do that. So the left joystick, just delete these two. You can do this too if you have an Xbox or PlayStation controller. And you just type left stick, left, then we're gonna find it. I'm gonna use the gamepad. The gamepad is kind of like it checks for like overall controllers, so this will work for both Xbox and PlayStation automatically, which is quite nice. But if you want some specific controllers, you can just use them too, but generally I just use the gamepad. And left stick right, left stick up, and left stick down. Great. So this is my two different ways to define movement as inputs. I just press save as it. You can also check the autosave and it'll just save every single change you make automatically. But I'm just gonna close this for now. And now it's time to actually code in our input. And if you just want to use it on a simple character, you need to add this component called player input. And we're gonna drag and drop this player input actions into it. I'm also just gonna give it the main camera because why not? And that's gonna be it. That's all we're gonna touch. Now it's time to do some code. So I'm just gonna create a folder for scripts. And usually when I use the input system, I create a script called input manager, where it's gonna manage the overall input. Okay, so I have my input manager class, and I'm just gonna delete everything inside. And the thing with the input system, because we have this player input component on it. Actually, in the background, all the inputs are working and running inside this player input. We just need, with some code, to actually grab the values of this input, and then we can assign it to a variable and store it, and then we can use it like we normally do. And the way we do this is actually quite easy. So we have this action called move, and by that we need to make a function called onMove. So we need to type in the name of the action we want to grab and put an on it. I'm also just gonna use the Unity engine.input system. And here I can then type input value. And this is the value the input will store when we run this function. And we now need to store this inside of vector3. So vector3 movement input, or just move input. So yeah, and I can then just say move input is equals to the value, and then we can say get, and we want to as a type of vector3. Since this is also a one-liner, we can also just do this and it'll do the exact same thing. There's a little shortcut if you want that. Anyway, so I can actually make a void update. I like to keep my things neat, so I want to have a void on handle input. And I don't want the move input to be public, but I want two public variables called the x-axis, and the z-axis. And I forgot to define it as a float. And I'm just gonna say that x-axis is equals to move input dot x, and z-axis is equal to move input dot set, and then just handle input. And this is it. Now this input will work, and it will also work with controllers, and you can try that for yourself. We just need to add this script on a character. So let me just find my capsule and add the input manager. And we should see this working now over here. So I'm gonna hold down D, 1, A minus, and 1. That's very nice. And right now, the input is not normalized. We can normalize it automatically over here, because right now it's set to analog. Analog is fine with joysticks on controls, but we can just for WSD set it to digital normalized. and then it will normalize it for us. Of course, we could also just use .normalize over here, and it'll work just fine. But if there's a setting for it, that's just less code. So I'm just gonna set it to digital normalized, and now it should be normalized. Yes, nice. And we can now just quickly wrap up in character controller. So I'm gonna make a script called player movements, and this is gonna be quite the speed run right here. So I'm gonna make a reference to the input. I'm gonna make a reference to the input manager called input. Say input is equal to get component input manager. And down here in the fixed update, I'm going to create a vector free called movement equals to input dot x-axis times transform dot right plus input dot set axis times transform dot forwards, and we also need a rigid body RB require component type of rigid body RB is equal to get components rigid body. And we take the movement plus equals new vector free for gravity 0 0 0 rb.velocity.y, that's gravity. Oh, we just also need to take the movement times equals 5, that's just going to be a speed, and rb.velocity is equal to movement. Alright, that's a quick character controller. We're just gonna add this on here, and constraints, freeze the rotation, and it should all work. So yeah. So this is the character controller, and this is how it works. You can do whatever you want with it. If you want better explanation, just write down in the comments and I'll help you out. I also just want to show off this project that I'm working on. I haven't really got that far yet because I've been focused on the style that I want to use. But it also uses the input system, which is quite nice. It's a third-person controller. And yeah, this is fine, but I'm just gonna show that you can use the input system in a lot of different ways. So I'm just gonna open up the player movement. This is just some extra bonus content. So this is gonna open, and yeah. So I have my input manager, which works kind of like that I showed in earlier in the video, and I have a reference to it, and I have two functions here. So this is how I define my move direction. So I just take my input, and then I calculate the direction based on the camera's transform, and then I do kind of like the same thing as I did earlier. I set to move direction, and also I handle the rotation based on it with some quaternions and add offset, and then you get this cute little fox controller, which I really enjoy. This fox slaps. So yeah, I'll also probably make a video about this game to show it off. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in it. I really like it. So yeah, that's it. I'm gonna finish now. Goodbye.